Kishimoto gets a bad rap for the female Naruto characters. Seriously, whenever I post a video about any female character, everybody in the comment section, well, Kishimoto doesn't know how to write women, so therefore they kinda suck in the story. Is that really so? Let's analyze how Kishimoto writes the female characters in Naruto and see whether or not he is bad at it. The first thing we have to talk about is that Naruto is a shonen anime/manga. It is targeted mainly at a male demographic. This is literally what the magazine is about. Of course, people of all ages and all genders watch/read Naruto, but the core demographic are 14 to 18-year-old males. So just like most other shonen stories, Naruto is gonna have more male characters than female characters. That's just how things go. You're never gonna find a Shonen Jump series that has more females than males. You're also gonna struggle a lot to find a shonen manga that has a female protagonist. The only one that comes to mind is Promised Neverland, and they're just 10-year-olds there, so it's not even that pronounced anyway. So Naruto probably has 70% of male characters and 30% of female characters. And of course, these numbers are just very raw estimates, but you can take a look at the teams in the Leaf Village, for example. They have 2 boys and a girl each team. They only have 1 female sensei. The Akatsuki, the main evil organization, only has 1 woman, so you see a pattern here. There aren't as many women as there are men, and this is to be expected. Of course, some shonen series are gonna have more female characters than Naruto does, but Naruto is not the worst offender, not by a long shot. I mean, if you read Hunter x Hunter, there isn't a single woman in that story up until chapter 50. Now that we got this out of the way, let's analyze the female characters in Naruto themselves. Starting off with everyone's favorite kunoichi, Sakura Haruno. Sakura definitely gets a very bad rap. Around the entire fandom, there aren't a lot of Sakura fans. She is deemed as the most useless character, everyone knows the meme. But is she really that bad of a character? Let's think about it. Sakura had a very normal childhood. She was raised by her parents, and then she became a ninja. She doesn't have a tragic backstory like Sasuke and Naruto. She is essentially what you would think about a normal girl would be in this very strange world where people can breathe fire, and they made you fight ever since you're 12 years old. She's kind of tossed into that world she's not really prepared for. And of course, she's gonna be girly. She loves Sasuke. She has a crush on him. Sasuke is her main priority. Now, this strikes me very much like a 12-year-old. This is kind of realistic to me, at least the way she starts the series. She's kind of a jerk to Naruto, and everyone is a jerk to Naruto, so that's to be expected. And she also has a crush on the popular guy in her class. I don't see any problems with the premise of Sakura starting off kind of useless like that, because she's not Naruto or Sasuke. She didn't have that backstory to harden her to the challenges of life. She has to learn that on the way. And she does to a certain extent. A lot of people mock the scene where Sakura cuts her hair off so she can fight against the Sound Team, but just think about that. From her perspective, cutting off her own hair is something that carries a lot of weight. Sakura put a lot of effort into growing her hair, making her hair look beautiful because she wanted to attract Sasuke's attention. When she cuts off her hair, she says, okay, I'm becoming an actual ninja now. I'm no longer this little girl. That's what the scene is supposed to represent. And when that's paired up with her rivalry with Ino, it's a very interesting character arc that she had in the Chunin exams. A lot of people say the fight against Ino was the worst fight in the series. Guys, that fight's not that bad. Of course, it's not Rock Lee versus Gaara. That's probably why people say it's bad, because it's contrasted with one of the best fights in the series. But just read it over again, it's fine. Sakura and Ino became true rivals in that fight, acknowledging each other as shinobis and not just squabbling because of Sasuke. They also didn't lose their feminine traits, which is a good thing. It's not flashy or anything like that, but it has some strategy to it. It's fine. But that's pretty much what Sakura gets to do in part 1. After that, she is not terribly present in the story unless she's trying to bring Sasuke back, crying for him, and then asking Naruto to bring him back. But yeah, that's kinda what the point was. She was just a regular girl thrusted into this almost impossible situation. What she's gonna do? She has to become more powerful. We have Ino, which is a foil to Sakura. They have pretty much the same goal. Ino is just way more confident than Sakura is. She's kind of a mirror character. She has that one particular difference. Ino really doesn't have a lot to do in the series. She just appears when she's going to be a rival to Sakura, and then she's not terribly relevant anymore. But what we get from her is not terrible. She's a another one of those 12-year-old girls that were thrusted into this very strange situation in a world that people can breathe fire. She didn't have a tragic backstory, she is just a girl. We then have Tenten, and yes, Tenten doesn't really get the spotlight at all in any moment of the entire story. If you don't know, in the manga, her fight against Temari is skipped over, and we just get the final panel when we see Tenten just lying on Temari's fan. The fight isn't shown, they only did it in the anime. It was so pointless to show the fight that Kishimoto didn't even bother to. He kinda always glosses over Tenten, and let's be real, not all characters are gonna be home runners anyway. We then get Temari, which I found to be a fascinating character, especially her relationship with Gaara and Shikamaru. She is the oldest sister in the Sound group. She's 15 and Shikamaru was 12 when they fought in the Chunin exams. Temari is just a cool character. I like her design, I like her personality, I like her arc turning good in the end of part 1. That's the arc of the entire Sound siblings. She's very interesting when she comes back saving Shikamaru, and then she kind of gives Shikamaru a lesson about being a ninja and a leader in the end of part 1. Temari is very well written. And then we have Hinata, which I kind of have a very strange opinion about. On the one hand, it's fine for Hinata to be this character that's shy, that's just kind of there to worship Naruto almost. But on the other hand, her character is too tropey. Sakura, Ino, Temari, and even Tenten, they don't feel like that when I'm reading in part 1. They feel like girls that are in this situation. But Hinata, she feels like an anime character. And I know this sounds weird to say because, yeah, obviously she is an anime character. But you know the feeling you get when you're watching something and then you just think that, oh, somebody wrote this. My suspension of disbelief was kind of broken here because Hinata just feels way too tropey. I would have preferred if Hinata was written with more subtlety to her, if she didn't faint every time she saw Naruto, for example, because her fight with Neji in the Chunin exams, her entire relationship with him and with the Hyuga clan, that's all very interesting. Out of the younger female characters, she's definitely my least favorite, and I know this is a hot take, which you can disagree with, it's fine. I don't dislike Hinata, I just think she could have been done a little bit differently. Kurenai's never really been the focus of the series, especially in part 1. I mean, she fights Itachi, gets stomped by him. People only make fun of her because she tried genjutsu against Itachi, but I always say this, she is a genjutsu specialist. What exactly did you want her to do? Itachi just wasn't a very good opponent. But then we get the most well-written female character in the entire Naruto story, and arguably one of the best written characters overall, Tsunade. I know a lot of people don't really like the Search for Tsunade arc, and that's mostly because there was a lot of filler sprinkled into that arc in the anime. A lot of unnecessary scenes when Naruto was training the Rasengan that dragged down the pacing of the story, those types of scenes that you think are not filler because it makes sense for them to be in the story that way, but they're just adding nothing to the story, making the arc slow. But the arc is very well paced and interesting in the manga. It's great. You should definitely try the Search for Tsunade manga arc one day if you're interested, if you haven't read that in a long time, because Tsunade's characterization there is so interesting. She really feels like a person that's lived through all these things. She doesn't really feel like a shonen character. She feels way more mature. The character is so dense. This woman that's lost her brother, her lover in the past, and now she, the most powerful medical ninja in the world, is afraid of blood because of that. When Jiraiya comes up offering the position of Hokage, she vehemently denies him, saying that they are fools, and that's because Dan and Nawaki wanted to be Hokages and they died. And then Naruto, this little boy that really reminds her of Nawaki, comes along and says, "You're wrong, you have to be the Hokage. How dare you disrespect the Hokage the way you're doing right now?" And you can just see that Tsunade was lost for so long. This is reflected in the way she lives her life, traveling from place to place, gambling everything she has, not really having a purpose in life anymore. When we meet her in that arc, she's in a very low point in her life. So low, in fact, that she was actually thinking about accepting Orochimaru's offer. It's even implied that she was about to poison Jiraiya and use him as a sacrifice for the Edo Tensei, which I don't really buy that. In my head canon, at least, she was just poisoning him so that he wouldn't interfere with a fight, because why would she sacrifice Jiraiya out of all people? Like, she could could just grab anybody else, and you can see how affected she was by everything that happened to her. When Orochimaru comes along with his enticing offer, she almost accepts. But Naruto managed to change her, and then she fights against Kabuto and Orochimaru. She finally understands what Nawaki and Dan were trying to do by becoming the Hokage, their dreams and aspirations, and when she sees these dreams and aspirations coalescing into Naruto, she cannot help feel responsible once more. And then when Naruto protects her and saves her from Kabuto, that's an amazing scene. She does the same thing, of course, when Orochimaru tries to go and kill Naruto, and the scene of her just getting stabbed repeatedly is hard to watch. But then she spanks Orochimaru, which is a very cathartic scene. Just read the Search for Tsunade arc. If you think Kishimoto doesn't know how to write a female character, read that arc again. You're gonna change your mind for sure. We also get Tayuya in part 1, which isn't terribly relevant in the grand scheme of things. She's just a villain in the Sound 4, and her fight was cool. She had an annoying personality. She wanted to kill Shikamaru and all that. She was serviceable for what she had to do. She was just as good as the other Sound 4 members, which were pretty good villains. But then moving on to Naruto Shippuden, we start off with a very strong arc depicting two awesome female characters, Chiyo and Sakura. Chiyo's character was very well worked into the story with Sasori and her relationship with him. There's just something poetic about this old lady that doesn't really want anything to do with her village anymore, that's been retired for years now, coming out of retirement because her lost grandson reappeared, and then she has to fight against her grandson and eventually kill him with the puppets he created out of his parents. It's tragic and so good. Chiyo is probably my favorite female character in Naruto. And also we get Sakura in the best fight she participates in the entire series, hands down. When we first watched this fight with Sakura keeping up with Sasori, beating down lots of puppets, we thought she meant business. Her teaming up with Chiyo was a great idea. A young and an old Kunoichi fighting together against this Akatsuki. Sakura being a pupil of Tsunade and Chiyo being a former rival of Tsunade, that was just such a great idea. Chiyo's sacrifice bringing Gaara back. You can argue that jutsu came out of nowhere. She was just, oh, I can bring people back all of a sudden, but still really minor. It fits with the theme of her having to reanimate the puppets and all that. And the scene when they take Chiyo's body back to the Sand Village, the village that she had almost forgotten about, but then she gave her life to save the Kazekage, is just impactful. But after this arc is when the problems that affect the female characters in Naruto begin to appear more dramatically. Sakura never does anything again. I mean, I'm exaggerating, of course. She heals people, she keeps Naruto alive during the war arc and all that stuff, but she never really gets the spotlight again. She is in the main team, in Team 7. You would expect she would get a couple more grandiose moments in the story, but she doesn't really. She still gets screen time at least. Other female characters get even more forgotten than Sakura. Ino barely ever shows up. Tenten never fights anyone except for a doppelganger, and Kakuzu in the war arc, which she stomps. Rin is literally a less shy Hinata. She has less characterization than the rock that smashed Obito. She has no apparent arc. She only sacrifices herself so that the Three Tails doesn't rampage on the Leaf Village. She doesn't do a whole lot in the flashback. She is what you call a plot device character that serves to give Kakashi and Obito further motivations in the story. Hinata does get the moment with Pain, but it's very short, especially in the manga. They stretch that fight out in the anime so that it's more than 15 seconds long, because in the manga it's just one jutsu, Pain uses the Shinra Tensei, she's done. So it's fine what they did in the anime. That's a really cool moment for Hinata, but that's the only impactful scene she has in Naruto Shippuden. Kushina is a really good character. She serves her purpose very well in the story. The scene where she meets Naruto for the first time in that realm of Naruto's mind is very emotional. Her relationship with Minato is also interesting, and the most complex relationship out of any couple in the Naruto series, I would say. She carries the weight of being the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, and yet they have a kid. Kushina's death scene when her and Minato sacrifice themselves to save their baby son is for me the saddest scene in the entire series. It's great, very well written, the character had an amazing ending. Still, she is not terribly present, her screen time is very limited, but when she is on screen, she is pleasant to read or watch. Of course, they lean on the trope of her being mad and always always beating up people, but she goes beyond that. Tsunade also gets kind of forgotten. She doesn't do a lot before the war arc. Now, of course, she has the job of being the Hokage, so you would expect she'll be behind the desk for long periods of time, giving out missions and all that, which is fine, but it's not that interesting. At least she got a pretty cool moment in the Madara fight. We also get introduced the 5th Mizukage, who doesn't do much. Among all 5 Kage, she is definitely the one that does the least during the entire series. You're starting to see a pattern here. The female characters are kind of forgotten in the series. Not only that, but the female characters that were introduced after the time skip tend to be very cartoonish, to be honest. Remember what I talked about Hinata being tropey and feeling like an anime character? Well, just think about the characters we were introduced after the time skip, the female characters. Mei, the 5th Mizukage, her character boils down to a gag about her not being able to get married. Karui, angry, spanking woman. Chiyo, that girl from the lab that was helping with pain. She was just a quirky scientist girl that's shy, very tropey as well. Karin, the girl that has the hots for Sasuke again. In Naruto Shippuden, Sakura didn't act like that anymore because she had grown, but I guess Karin, who is older than Sakura, couldn't act more maturely. She had to be annoying always after Sasuke, being that condescending type of girl anyway. The thing is, when you write a character with a trope in mind, you can start things off with that, of course, but if the character is summarized down to the character trope, then that doesn't really work, and Kishimoto tends to do that a lot with the female characters after the time skip. Kishimoto himself said that he is not terribly good at writing female characters, but he said a lot of things downplaying his own ability to write and draw. I mean, he said that he is the only mangaka that doesn't know how to draw, which is obviously a lie, so he downplays himself a lot in those interviews. He obviously can write amazing female characters. Just look at Tsunade in part 1. And yeah, a lot of male writers have problems writing women because you can't really relate to them very much. I myself am not an expert, but the thing I like to do when I don't really know what to write for a female character, well, I take the gender out of the equation. I just think about this as a character and not as a female character. And then you add some female quirks to the character in order to make her female. Basing the character of a female trope tend not to work out. I mean, is there anybody in this world whose favorite Naruto character is Karin or Karui or Kaguya? Now let's talk about Kaguya later. I don't think so, because they are not memorable. They don't really have that much of a character to them. They're much more condensed into this trope. I mean, Karin, she had a lot of chances to develop further. She was literally stabbed by Sasuke because Sasuke wanted to get Danzo behind her, and then when Sasuke comes back to the village, she's like, "Oh, Sasuke, I forgive you." This is not character development. This is just the character still being tropey. Logically speaking, she would have changed unless she is completely insane, which, well, I guess you can say Karin's insane, but still, it doesn't make for a very compelling character arc. And don't get me started with Konan, who is a very interesting character. She's the only Akatsuki female character, which, if you look at criminal organizations around the world, there are gonna be way fewer females, so that's at least kinda realistic. The problem with Konan is that she's always under Pain / Nagato's shadow. She can't really be her own character. And then after Pain dies, she has one cool fight against Obito, and that's it. Now, what they do with Konan is good. They should have done that to more female characters. It's just that it's not really enough. Some people wanted Konan to survive the fight, join the alliance during the war, which could have been interesting to see, but I also like her death scene against Obito a lot. She died, but the way she did so was interesting. We saw a flashback of her with Yahiko and Nagato, and you could argue maybe this was again an instance of her being overshadowed by Nagato and Yahiko this time, but we saw more characterization for Konan. Also, the scene of the paper flying and completing the 3 frog faces in their old hideout is really nice and emotional, so that was a very good ending moment for for a character. Even though you could argue the character itself didn't reach its full potential during the series, the ending was quite good. And then you're gonna say, well, the final villain of the series was female. Kaguya was female. Yeah, but Kaguya is literally the worst character in Naruto. So yeah, nothing really good comes from her. I am working on a very long video detailing everything that's wrong about Kaguya. It's gonna take a while for me to make that video, but it's coming. Suffice it to say that Kaguya doesn't really improve the female character situation in the Naruto series at all. The main issue that Kishimoto finds himself with the female characters is that they never deliver on their promises. Arguably, the only character that really paid off, female character that is, was Tsunade in the Madara fight, where she was really cool. The 4 axioms of her healing ninjutsu were well depicted, and that was an interesting scene. Other female characters never have that moment. Even Mei, that was fighting against Madara, doesn't do much. She's just tossing magma style and water style against him. That's pretty much it. Sakura gets forgotten during the war arc, which should have been the arc for her to shine, but she doesn't do anything in that arc. For the first half, she's just healing people in a tent. She is a medical ninja and a powerful combatant. She shouldn't be just healing people. She should be doing that in the front lines, fighting, doing something more interesting. And then people always come up and say, well, but she punched Kaguya in the end. Yes, who cares about that? As if punching a very bad character once would develop Sakura into this magnificent character. No. Hinata, she doesn't get anything to do after the pain arc. After Naruto completely ignores her after her love confession, she is just hanging around, rooting for Naruto. Hey, Naruto's hand, it's so warm and big. Kishimoto is very capable of writing compelling female characters. It's just that they are kind of forgotten. Now, maybe that's his bias. Maybe that's because he just thinks male characters are cooler, and maybe that's also because the editors and Shonen Jump itself kind of focuses more on male characters, and maybe male characters sell more, especially in Japan. Boys just tend to prefer reading about characters that are male as well, especially in the battle series. That's why Kishimoto uses so much fan service. It's to attract the boys when the girl's on screen. I mean, do you think Tsunade would be that popular if instead of 106 she was like 16? I don't think so. It wouldn't make the character worse, but it would make the character less popular. That's probably one of the reasons Sakura gets a really bad rep, you know? If she had Hinata's size, I think people would like Sakura way more, which it's just how the world operates. I guarantee you that if Hinata's and Sakura's chests were swapped, Hinata would be the character everybody hates. Everyone would say, Hinata's so useless, she's just like, so shy and all that, and they'd say, Sakura, she is so based. Oh, she's so cute. But that has nothing to do with the character. Every single female character in Naruto didn't really fulfill their true potential as characters in the story. Except for Chiyo, because Chiyo is great, and even though she is this amazing character that has a final emotional conclusion to her story, she is a one-arc character, and I'm referring more to characters that have an overarching story in the series, which is more difficult to pull off. The one that came closest to it was Tsunade. She should have had a final moment in the series. It just kind of fizzled out of the narrative. She lost to Madara, she healed the 5 Kage, she returned to the battle, and then she disappears from the story. She doesn't do anything anymore. Like, what's the point of even bringing her back if that's the case? If Tsunade had a final moment, something that cements her character in the war arc after she fights Madara, she would have been a fully realized character. It doesn't even have to be a big fight. It can be something like Itachi telling Sasuke he will always love him. That was Itachi's final oomph moment in the series. But no, it doesn't happen. And as a matter of fact, it doesn't happen with any of the female characters. Sure, Tsunade has that really nice moment when she meets Dan again, when he's able to use his powers on his own volition because the Edo Tensei is being released. He then saves Tsunade from Madara's attack and kisses her in the forehead just like she did in the past. It's a really nice scene and something that character really needed, but I don't see that as a final scene for Tsunade. If she had actually died in the fight against Madara, that would have been a nice scene, but she didn't, so you should have done something else after she returns to the battlefield, and nothing is done. It is kinda sad. In the final chapter of the series, we just see that they got paired up together with their respective love interests, and that's kinda what they were relegated to. There's also an argument to be had that the romance in the entire Naruto series is underdeveloped, which is true, but to be fair, this is a shonen series. Romance has never been the focus. It was pretty prevalent, especially in the beginning of the series, with Naruto having a crush on Sakura and Sakura having a crush on Sasuke, but things never really develop further. When Hinata confesses her love for Naruto, he completely ignores her. I get the feeling Kishimoto is kind of embarrassed to draw and write romantic scenes, so he just dabbles in that comedic aspect of romantic writing, and in the end the characters are just together with their children already. We don't see a conclusion to their love stories. We only see a nice conclusion for Sasuke and Sakura's romance in chapter 699. So yeah, Naruto's romance has never been the best thing ever. It could have been better, but I understand this isn't the focus of the story. It's just a little disappointing that so many female characters' primordial trait is that they have a crush on a guy. And I think that's fine in part 1 when they are younger, but then when they get older, more experienced, they see how the world actually operates. This is not that good anymore. I mean, Karin, that's one of the reasons I don't really like her. And sure, liking somebody else is fine, but basing your entire personality around that is just something else entirely. Hinata turns into a housewife in Boruto, which there's nothing wrong with you being a housewife, unless if you are a semi-protagonist in a shonen series, then your character's interest is going to decrease a lot. But then again, characters being forgotten, that's not exclusive to the female characters in Naruto. Plenty of interesting characters were not developed to their fullest potential in the series. I can think about Rock Lee and Neji on top of my head. It's just that when you think about it, Naruto has a very large cast of characters, and focusing on every one of them, giving all of them a very final conclusion, interesting arc, it would have been very daunting. It can be done, but then the series would have been much longer, and that was not Kishimoto's intent. Or maybe it's the editor's fault for telling Kishimoto to keep the story going at a breakneck pace. But it's just that the female characters seem to suffer that fate more often than the male characters. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already, watch this other video right here, and like this video as well if you enjoyed the content, because it really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much for watching.